Why do we have to pee? Welcome to Physiology Fundamentals with Dr. H, where we make physiology fun by understanding the fundamentals. Today we're going to investigate the question of what do kidneys actually do, filtering the blood from plasma to pee. Let's get going. So why do we have to pee? It's a fair question, something we do all the time, and it creates a lot of challenges if we do not. The basic answer to this is we produce some metabolic wastes in our body that we can't really get rid of otherwise. These are wastes that are produced by some of the chemical reactions that take place in us. Examples of these things are molecules like urea, which is made when we break down amino acids from proteins, creatinine, which is made in our muscles when they're busy, and hydrogen ions, which are produced when we make various acids in our body. All of these things will tend to build up in our blood. And so we can accumulate these waste products in our blood that's heading into the kidneys. Now, the goal of the kidneys is to filter the blood of these waste products. So when we say the kidney is filtering the blood, what do we mean? Well, when the blood enters the kidney, some of these waste products are removed from the blood and eventually placed into the urine, which is excreted. With the goal being that the blood vessels leaving the kidney have much less waste product in them than the blood did coming into the kidney. And then we say the kidney has filtered those out of the blood. So that's a key thing for why we have to pee all the time, because we keep producing these waste products and they have to continuously be removed from the blood. Another reason we have to pee is because we need to maintain the proper blood plasma osmolarity and volume. So what that means is we need to keep the concentration of everything in the blood at the proper level. We'll discuss this more later in this video and in future videos, but it is important that we keep the concentration of things at the proper levels in our blood, especially things like sodium, which is very important for reasons we'll discuss in the future. So, why do we have to pee? To get rid of some waste products. Here is some basic anatomy of the system that we have discussed already. So, the blood enters the kidney through the renal arteries and exits through the renal veins. Again, with the goal being that we're going to remove some waste products out of the blood from the renal arteries into the kidney, and then we're going to put those in these tubes heading towards the bladder, which are known as the ureters. So the ureter is the tube that carries the urine from the kidney to the bladder. The bladder stores the urine with the waste in it, and eventually it is excreted through another tube called the urethra. And this is how we get rid of the waste out of the body. Another job of the kidneys, though, in addition to getting rid of waste products, is to make sure that we, again, keep the proper concentration of everything in the plasma. Especially important is to keep the salt and water content of the plasma at the proper levels. And there are various hormones that are involved that help the kidneys to control these things to make sure they're held at the proper levels. For example, as we all know, if we drink a lot of water, our urine will look more like this, where it is quite dilute and there's a large volume. Okay, so this would be the case where if we have excess water in the blood, the kidneys will actually take some of that water and add it into the urine so we can eliminate extra water, and it shows up in the pee. On the other hand, if we are poorly hydrated, as we know, we're going to produce urine that looks more like this, which is a smaller volume of more highly concentrated urine. In this case, what's happened is the kidneys have taken the water from what would have been eliminated and put it back into the blood. So the kidneys have the ability to, in response to hormones that are controlling all this, to either take water out of the blood and add it to the urine when we're overhydrated, or to take water from what would be the urine and put it back in the blood when we are poorly hydrated. We will discuss this further in a future video as well. Another important job for the kidney is to control the acid-base balance of the body. Okay, so this is done by the kidney's ability to get rid of either acids or bases, right? So the kidney, if we have too much acid in our blood, okay, if there is too much acid in our blood heading into the kidneys can actually take these protons and put them into the urine so we can eliminate them. On the other hand, if we have too much base in the blood, the kidney has the ability to take these out and put them into the urine, right? So the kidneys can eliminate either acids or bases depending on the situation that is needed to maintain the proper pH of our blood. Of course, the kidneys don't do this alone. The lungs are super important in maintaining this too, and they do this by controlling the levels of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide also effectively works as an acid, and the lungs are important for making sure we get rid of the proper amount of this to also keep our pH together. So the kidneys and the lungs, they work together to keep our pH in the proper range, which happens to be between 7.35 and 7.45 for our blood. So what units in the kidney make them able to do this? Well, the unit in the kidney that is able to do this, and we actually have about 1 million of each of these in each of our kidneys, is known as a nephron. And we're just going to touch on the processes that are accomplished by the nephron here. The first is filtration, right? So the first goal of the nephron is to take, again, some of these waste products out of the blood and put them into a series of tubes, which will further process this, what we call filtrate, ultimately into urine. The next step that the nephron is important for is reabsorption. Because it turns out that what happens is we actually put a lot of our plasma into this tube, including many things we would like to keep. A lot of things like sodium and a lot of water and glucose and many other goodies that we don't want to pee out. We want to keep those. So we actually have to do something called reabsorption, where we put those back into the blood. And that's just a very important step. Finally, well, in addition, we also have to sometimes really secrete things. So there are some things, the waste products, that maybe they make it past the entrance to this tube. And we'll come back and talk about the anatomy of this tube later. But we really do want to get rid of these things. And so we do a process called secretion, which is highlighted here, where we take it from the blood and add it into the tube to get rid of even more of it so that we can get rid of these wastes in the urine. So that is the process of secretion. So filtration, the goal is to put a bunch of fluid into this tube, including both things we want to get rid of and things we want to keep. Reabsorption is to put the things back we want to keep. The secretion is a further way of getting rid of things we really would like to lose. And then finally, uh, we need to balance our water and our salt. We've mentioned this several times, okay? And so we have the ability to take salt and water and put it back into the blood, or to leave it in the tubule and pee it out. We put all of this stuff together, and what we're able to do is to take plasma out of the blood and ultimately turn it into pee or urine. So we've gone from plasma to pee through the nephron, and what's in the pee is mostly waste products that we are trying to get rid of, and we have put back into the blood all of the things we would like to keep. The rest of the system after the nephron is really just there to hold the urine and eliminate it when it's time to go. So finally, what happens if the kidneys don't filter the blood? So what difference would that make to you? Well, remember, the goal of the kidney is to take those waste products and take them out of the blood and put them into the urine. Okay, so this is what we're trying to do normally. Well, obviously, if this is not happening, what happens is the waste products come in to the kidney, but then they are going to just leave back in the veins, leaving the kidney. So we're not going to lower their concentration. And remember, we're continuing to produce more of these waste products. So what's going to happen eventually is the levels of these waste products are going to reach very high levels in the blood, and this can be problematic. Okay. So things like urea and creatinine are going to reach very high levels. We call this azotemia. And commonly, hydrogen ions can reach very high levels, and we call this acidosis. In addition, we will have electrolyte problems, right? Because the kidneys, when they're functioning properly, are maintaining things like sodium and potassium, and also uh, calcium levels, we'll see. So the kidneys do have a few other jobs besides just getting rid of waste. They also are actually important in controlling the amount of red blood cells in our blood, right? So if we take a sample of our blood and we look at it, uh, the amount of red blood cells in that is actually controlled by the kidney, right? And they produce a hormone called erythropoietin that does this. In addition, the kidneys produce a hormone called renin, which controls blood pressure, right? And finally, the kidneys help in a variety of ways to maintain our proper calcium levels. So the kidneys are a very important organ doing a lot of very important things. So in summary, why do we have to pee? Well, we have to pee to eliminate waste from the blood. This is one of the major reasons, okay? Now, of course, we also, as mentioned, are maintaining our proper acid-base balance. We also have to maintain the proper osmolarity and volume of the blood, or the concentration of everything in the blood. And we have to maintain proper levels of electrolytes like potassium and sodium and calcium. Of course, if the kidneys fail to work, all of these things will be at risk for not being maintained properly. Thanks for watching Physiology Fundamentals with Dr. H. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to get outside and go for a run.